Hey, how you doing, guys? Uh, we're gonna wait for people to file in here for a second, but I just thought I'd go live. My name is Don Jolly, editor-in-chief of Dagger magazine, and I'm streaming from my new apartment. I'm still kind of getting unpacked. What's up, goobers? Nice to see Hayden, and of course, Kobo Comics. So we're gonna be hanging out and doing a stream, but I do have a theme. Uh, Many of you who are on the daggermag.com/forum would be aware that I've just released the PDF of Gorefest, which is my pen and paper role-playing game like Dungeons and Dragons. And we're going to be doing some more stuff around Gorefest to promote that. In fact, if you go to daggermag.com and go to /forum and sign up for the forum, you can participate. We're going to be doing an online game. I just put up the first post of it today. I won't get into that whole procedure, but basically it's like here at Dagger we are trying to focus on Gorefest and show off how much fun the game is, and right now you can get the PDF for $10 at daggermag.com, or you can read the entirety of the rules for free, so you can play the game whenever you want. But so we want to do this stuff about Gorefest, and because I'm unpacking my shit, I came across all the old versions of Gorefest, because this isn't just something that I wrote in the last year. We've been developing this version of it for about a year, but this is something that goes back a long fucking time. This goes to 1999, when I was in either the 7th or the 8th grade. I wrote the first version of Gorefest, and I have all of the old versions right here. So one of the things that people ask when we do streams or we're hanging out on the forums is occasionally people will ask me for writing advice, and I have no idea why. But one of the things that I always say, and I do have a hard time putting this into practice for myself with a lot of writing projects, is that writing is iterative. And I think that one of the things that's really interesting about this, even it's a role-playing game that resembles 1980s action movies. It has a particular style and a particular aesthetic to it. But it's also 20 years of refining shit. And going all the way back to like weird childhood projects and through adolescence and getting more and more professional and less professional and getting longer and shorter. So I thought I'd go through the whole thing and kind of talk about the way that you have to iterate work and the way that you get better at complicated tasks like writing or game design or something like that. So yeah, but first we're just gonna hang out for a second. Where is Jane? You're still unpacking. Yeah, what up, Corey Meller? Hey, nice to see you, man. Jane is around. She'll probably show up for the stream here. So Raytheon 2020 says Kobo Comics. Yes, that's right. I haven't mentioned it on stream yet, but we are supported today by our good friends at Raytheon. Daggermag.com is proud to be an official sponsor of, or proud to be officially sponsored by Raytheon. Excuse me. And let's not forget their Gaytheon Pride Month promotion, because missiles and bullets kill everybody equally. No hate, just tactics. No hate, just tactics. That's why Raytheon is an accepting employer. They help people. They sponsor a number of charities. They help people in their gender expression every day. They changed the name of the company to Gaytheon for a month. But it really should be called that all year, in my opinion, because it's so tolerant. It's such a tolerant institution. I really love when a corporation, I was walking through Times Square the other day, and the Wells Fargo bank sign is a rainbow. Like all the banks are done up in rainbow colors, and it really gives me a more positive impression of fucking banks. It really means a lot to me that the banks are on the side of good. Glad that's going on. Definitely makes me want to get deeper into debt. Everything these days makes me want to get deeper into debt, except playing Gorefest. So let's talk about that. Vito Cabela de Hervela says, hello, Don. Don is a communist. Look at this well-rested mouse, Prince, looking good, Don, says Devil Doa. How you doing, Devil Doa? By the way, the whole Raytheon bit is Kobold from daggermag.com/forum. He's a great poster. He's going to be featured as an artist and a writer in our next issue, Dagger issue 5, which is coming up. And he's just on a fucking roll tonight, so I'm going to repeat everything he says. It's probably going to be funnier than my shit. Kobold is right there in the chat. If you're not on the forum, I mean, we only got 10 people watching, but he's fucking great. Where's the foot thread? I don't know. Is there a foot thread? All right. So this is Gorefest 2nd edition. You will notice that I have sealed it in like a report cover. Actually, a very durable report cover. This was written in 1999. The first, quote-unquote, first edition of Gorefest was like written in my notebook in middle school. And I'll be upfront about the circumstances of Gorefest. Like, everybody who's played D&D in middle school knows that sometimes you run a game where people start pushing the limits of what's morally acceptable, and you start killing people, committing ghastly crimes of all manner and description. You justify it by saying, oh, I'm playing a chaotic evil character or whatever. So Columbine happened when I was in middle school, and I was playing a lot of D&D with a crew of extremely angry weirdos. And, one day I realized that these sorts of like crazy rampage games would be way more fun without all the medieval fantasy bullshit. So I just made a simple system where you could shoot each other with guns. And that started snowballing into Gorefest. Like, people stopped playing other games, and it became the Gorefest show. And that's when I realized it was like this, because I had thought it was kind of like a fuck off, like, we'll do this for an afternoon kind of idea. But people really liked it, like people other than me. It's not like I was forcing it on them. So I decided to write it down. And this was put together on Microsoft Works in 1999. There was not even a spell checker in this program, so the whole thing has like fucking absolute dummy spelling. And it's a pretty interesting, like the weird thing is that it's not the worst. Like, I had no idea what I was doing designing a role-playing game. Like, I knew how to make it resemble like a role-playing game in terms of format, but I hadn't examined role-playing game mechanics in any like detail. And I'm in 7th grade. I'm not trying to be too hard on myself, but like I had no idea what the fuck I was doing, so I was just guessing. Like, there's a limit break system in here, like from Final Fantasy VII, that makes like absolutely no fucking sense in a turn-based environment. Like, everything is handled with percentage rolls, just because that was the easiest thing to calculate. The economy is totally broken. There's like fucking 15 classes. I mean, it's like everybody who designs a role-playing game when they're a kid, it pretty much resembles this. And so that's where it started. And that's where it could have ended, but I kept up with it. And like I kept playing it through as I changed groups and I went into high school. Like people still were enjoying playing Gorefest, and so I came up with the 3rd edition, which I don't have anymore. And that was like more of a cyberpunk thing, because at this point, like, I was much more conscious of the fact that like people really were turned off by the Grand Theft Auto like rampage aspect of the game. So I tried to sci-fi it up a little, which is why in the current edition of Gorefest that you can get online, there's a cyberpunk rule that like lets you get rid of the worst quirks like racist and child molester. But it's a fucking dark comedy game, and it's more fun to play with preverts and stuff in terms of characters, like not real preverts. But so I don't have the 3rd edition, but I do have the 4th, which I wrote in high school. And this is actually like, there's some things wrong with it in terms of how the math works out, but this is kind of an interesting game. We'll talk about that in a second. This entire transcript is going to be read by a prosecutor someday, says Johnny Bidlot. Very possible. Lol. I still have advice you gave me an 8chan saved. I too remember you describing living in a warehouse and pissing in a big bucket labeled pickle time. Good going, brother. Yeah, no, I did do that. I slept in the same bed as Dawn 2 weeks ago. That's you died. Yeah, what's up? I'm not gonna say your name, but what's up, man? You didn't have word perfect. I did not have word perfect. Spelling is overrated. Just look at my post as kobold. You died is laughing. All right. Well, so this is the fourth edition of Gorefest, and I put this together in high school, and it's basically the same system as the third. Like the third was really popular, but it was one of those things. Like a bunch of people in my high school played it, but it was one of those things where I just kept updating it all the time, so there was never like a stable version. And like I said, it was a little bit more sci-fi, and so I wanted to get back to the original like action movie kind of milieu because it's just more fun to fuck around with like recognizable modern day stuff, especially if you're going to be doing morally transgressive, like violent role playing. And this one actually resembles, in a lot of superficial ways, the game that you can buy right now. And this is from 2003. This is interesting. So I started playing this game called Rollmaster with one of my other groups. And Rollmaster is these big, complicated critical charts. So this is where I introduced location-based critical hit damage, where you can automatically sever people's heads and arms and kill them and do crazy damage multipliers and stuff like that. And that actually would evolve into the resolution mechanic for the game as a whole, but that would take many more years. So, you know, this one is one of the things I want to talk about. Like we had this in the last edition too, but we didn't have pictures. I stole these from Fallout. You'd have big equipment lists, and one of the things that you'll notice about Gorefest when you look at it today is there's no equipment. Like everything is hand waved because the idea is that you're playing a movie. You're not like simulating a reality, right? So it's a little bit less like meticulous about inventory and shit like that than Dungeons and Dragons. But it used to have this vestigial inventory system because, like, you know, when you start off with any idea, you do what the people who have done before you, you know, you do it that way, just because it makes the most sense. And I remember this in high school with everything I was doing because I was writing like science fiction stories. I wrote like some fucking horrible, I hope nobody can find it, like gonzo journalism kind of stuff when I was in high school. I didn't know shit. But, you know, you're so concerned about trying to be legitimate, trying to do all the things that will make your piece of work legitimate, that you do a lot of things formally that you don't necessarily need to do. Like, I ended up getting rid of this whole inventory system as the years went on. But, like, at the time, I wasn't even thinking about, like, is this something that is dispensable or not? I was thinking that this is just the way that role-playing games are put together. So I wanted my role-playing game to have big, pointless lists of fucking vehicles so that you can tell the difference between a jet ski and a yacht in terms of what their speed dice is. Doesn't matter. But, you know, at the time, I thought that it was very important. And this also features something that would evolve into the game that you can play today. This is the very first quirk table. There's only 59 entries on it. I'm going to read a couple of these here. Religious, chronic gambler, obsessed with sports, unusual tattoos, eyes of different colors, whistles constantly, sexist, arachnophobia, drug addict, cannibal, crossdresser, pedophile, member of a cult, nihilist, suicidal, sex addict, missing finger, masochist, hypochondriac, convicted felon, infamous child star, third nipple, pacemaker, escape from a mental institution, celebrity, afraid of clowns, deathly afraid of nuclear war, hermaphrodite, number 68, hermaphrodite. Yeah, I mean, this was a fun table. And the thing is that people started using this in other game systems, in other games when I was in high school. And, like, it got to the point where every time we'd make D&D characters, everybody would be a pathological liar and a psychopath and some kind of sex fetishist. And, you know, it made people think we were fucking genuinely insane, which I think of any social activity, that's a nice thing to have going for you. And so I was really proud of this when I put it together. And this is kind of when it confirmed to me, like, this is something that's worth it to keep working on. There's some problems mathematically. Like, this system is insanely easy to break. Basically, if you make a knife-wielding character, you get like 9 times the attacks of any other character. there's a weird thing where if you're crippled, you get critical hits more often. So if one of the most powerful builds was a guy in a wheelchair with a rocket launcher. There's all kinds of fucking problems here. But when I got this one done, I realized that this was something that was worth it to keep working on, and I kept working on it. So afraid of nuclear war. As Raytheon's official rep for this stream, I disavow that. Yeah, Kobo, you're gonna need to throw a disavow in, okay? Lol, afraid of nuclear war. Yeah, who could be afraid of nuclear war? It's not gonna be a problem at all. This game is immoral, says Joe Biden. Howdy y'all, says Violent Ingrate. Hey, what's up? I don't see a problem with empowering people in wheelchairs. Very problematic. Yeah, that's one of the things that's great about Gorefest is we bake the social justice into the game mechanics. That's why women get advantage on every roll, because of their natural superiority to us disgusting men. It's her turn. What am I going to say? You want me to lie to you? You want me to tell you that it's not her turn? That it's not HRC 2020's Time in the Sun? You want me to fucking lie to you? I don't know. I don't want to do that. I don't want to jerk you around. I'm just telling you the truth here. It's her turn. Alright, let's keep going. Now, so 4th edition I made in high school was pretty good. Oh, shit, I forgot. I wrote the history of Gorefest in this edition. I'm going to show that. I made the art in Poser 4 with the fucking, with the pencil sketch filter on it. There you go. Gorefest has existed in one form or another since 1996. Oh, I forgot this. Originally planned as a computer game where the main character dismembers lawyers with a rusty hook, the game lent its name to a set of informal RPG rules in 1998/1999. This version of the game featured a quasi-percentile rule system backed by 8 total weapons and a hedonistic attitude towards violence that used illegal drugs as healing potions and dealt vaguely with the brazen killing of innocents. Even though it was post-Columbine, school shooting scenarios were exceedingly popular with this early system. This unwritten, bloody system is considered Gorefest First Edition. Wow. So yeah, I wrote that in high school. I had very little self-awareness, but it is funny to see somebody already focused on retrospective at the age of fucking 15. Jesus Christ, get over yourself. But like I said, when I did the 4th one, I realized this was something I wanted to keep up with, so I started to be a little focused on how the whole thing was coming together. Okay, here we go. These are sheets for a fucking way later edition, but this is the playtest document for Gorefest 5th edition, which I did right after I left high school. I believe when I was living in San Antonio and going to the University of Texas. Any Han attributes? Devil Doa asks. No, not in this edition. Of course, there is a robust Han. There are robust Han rules in the edition that you can get at daggermag.com/gorefest.html. Daggermag.com. Take a look at Gorefest. Robust Han rules. All the Han rules you need. Okay, so this one that I did right after high school is it was a disaster. It was only played a couple of times, and this, like, you want to talk about balance problems, it's like, I basically took Gorefest characters who were already, like, really fucking strong in comparison to, like, pretty much any other role-playing game. And the thing about Gorefest is there's really never been a leveling system. It's designed for, like, 1 or 2 off adventures rather than, like, continuous campaign play. So the characters just start out really powerful and they stay really powerful. And in this one, I basically bolted a system of superpowers on top of that. And all the superpowers, like, stepped all over each other and made playing the game into a fucking brutal nightmare of, like, who had like, deployed their fucking character building points with the most precision to, like, just insanely annihilate everybody else at the table and all the NPCs. The NPCs were complete jokes compared to the players. But it did have a full 100 entry quirk table. Notice it's got very compact formatting here. I always worked on Gorefest when I was stressed out about other shit. So I worked. I tried to make them as attractive playtest documents as I possibly could. And if you look at the edition that we got for sale now, Matt James did artwork throughout the whole thing. It's 57 pages, fully illustrated, and it looks like a fucking real-ass RPG book. It's great art. But the layout and everything has always been very important to me, because you got to make something that's like a playable document. Let's see. We got furry. We got emotionally cold. Smells bad. Guilty. Celebrity, six-fingered hand, sexist, racist, hates children, cuts self ritualistically, suicidal, convicted felon, escaped from mental institution, midget, comic book collector, compulsively kills children, pedophile, says one-liner, uses puns often, criminally insane, chronic depression, missing toe, Siamese twin, test tube baby, neo-Nazi, distrusts strangers, obsessed with fashion, cannibal, faked own death, still in school, grade school dropout, bizarre tattoos, kung fu fan, afraid of clowns, mutilation fetishist, convicted rapist, former professor, had a sex change, bad dancer, traumatized, sports fan, weird scar, member of a cult, compulsive liar. Like, you get the idea. This is not the best quirk table, but because the game was played so little, I never really got to see it in action. But even just looking at it now, like stuff like having still in school, and like there was another one about like dropped out of school and still in school. Yeah, grade school dropout and still in school. Like quirks that contradict each other like that, you got to kind of get rid of that shit. Like, because it'll produce, the idea is with the quirks, you roll a few of these features and it gives you a really vivid image of what the character is in your head. But the features can't contradict each other. They all have to be additive. And sometimes, you should be able to get them multiple times and have it mean multiple things. You want it to be as useful a table as possible, and I did not obey that axiom in this edition. This is yet... I don't know. Pretty much the only interesting thing about it is that I put that fucking dumbass superpower thing in there. It's still got equipment tables. It resembles the other one in a lot of ways. I think... I mostly just took like the idea of a feat system from like D&D 3rd edition, which was very popular at the time. And D&D 3rd edition is another one of those role-playing games that kind of has a couple of redundant systems, because class is supposed to show you what your special skills are, and then you've also got skills, and then you've also got feats. So that's 3 redundant systems to describe like why your character is special. And this went all in on that, and it was a disaster. A lot of people like 3rd edition. It's not really my thing. Let's see. So that was the 5th. This, like after that, like I didn't think it was working very well. So I decided I had some time. I moved back from San Antonio to Austin, Texas, and I was like working a job. It was just things were fucking smooth sailing for Don, and I decided I was gonna make a go of it and do Gorefest as like a full-length, saleable RPG. And this version was played quite a bit. Not quite as popular as the 4th, but I wasn't playing as many games as I did when I was in high school. But this is like a full 60, 70-page game in 2 columns. And it's pretty well done. Like, the math adds up. It's fun to play. In my opinion, it's a little bit too complicated. It's basically as elaborate as Gorefest ever got as sort of a traditional Dungeons & Dragons style role-playing game. And we do have a D100 quirk table that I used quite a bit when I was putting together the quirk table for this most recent edition. So, compulsive masturbator, multiple personalities, klepto, nympho, walks with cane, hypochondriac, horrific scar, transgender post-op and transgender pre-op are two different options there. Speed addict, infantilism fetish, Oedipal freak. That's a good one. Shit. I should put Oedipal freak back on the tables. Celebrity, eyes different color, fat fuck. There. That's polite. That's really good. Fat fuck. Gambling addiction, war flashbacks. Yeah, you get the idea. Once again, we've got an obtuse skill system. The skill descriptions alone are about 20 pages of this rules document. We've got an experience point system so that you can run continuing campaigns. We did run a few campaigns in this. And I gave you titles like you get in AD&D. I just realized that Gorefest is much more LGBT, ABBQ friendly than D&D these days. Yeah, no, it's a, like I said, the social justice is baked right into the system, right into. It's like when you get a Pizza Hut and you've got that cheesy, garlicky crust. It's just baked right in. Gorefest, baked right in. It's baked right in there. Matt's artwork is so good in the PDF. I'm really excited for Gorefest Red Dragon Rising DLC. Han would break Gorefest. That's one hell. Okay, cool. So, what else we got here? Oh yeah, I gave you titles for your levels in this edition here. So in D&D and AD&D, when you're a fighter and you're like level 5, you're a lord or whatever. You have titles: swordsman, myrmidon, gladiator, champion, and I always liked them. But the titles for this one are: level 1 is green, level 2 is ballsy, level 3 is cold, level 4 is hard, level 5 is lord, level 6 is bad, level 7 is nasty, level 8 is hard ass, level 9 is badass, and level 10 is heartless. All caps. Heartless. That's kind of interesting. And yeah, there's a skill system, standard fucking combat system. It's actually a little bit like Cyberpunk 2020, a lot of focus on like armor and cover and all that kind of stuff, jamming dice and ammo consumption and different rules for automatic fire and covering fire and all kinds of shit like that. Very big equipment section, vehicle section. I mean, it's a pretty massive little game. And if we had done a full publication version of it, it would have been about 60, 70 pages, like about the size of the Holmes Blue Book D&D, which I think is about ideal for role-playing game. But, it just did not feel the same as, like, the thing is that with Gorefest, I realized pretty early on that it was something that people really enjoyed, but the rules were not necessarily the thing that they were enjoying. There was a particular thing that would happen when you'd get everybody together and you'd put them in this environment where they'd start to behave in a certain way in the game, and it would become really funny and really interesting. And a lot of times it would be at its best when we sort of ignored the rules. Like, the rules could sometimes help it come about, but sometimes they would hurt it. And so this is, like I said, this is something that happened over the course of many, many years and many, many games and many, many iterations of the game itself. I was just trying to think, like, let's cut this down to only the parts that people really enjoy and cut everything else out of it. And people did enjoy that big, relatively complete edition, but I didn't like running it. I didn't like running games in it because it just felt like work. It felt like homework. It felt like D&D. And I didn't want the game to be like that. So went through a bunch more permutations of life. Ended up going to the Pacific Northwest, coming back. You live in between all these things. I ended up in another place where I'm feeling pretty anxious. And that's when I did the 7th edition. And I don't actually have that. But I made this just as kind of a palate cleanser. I don't think this was hardly played at all. But I made this as... The 7th edition was kind of weird. It was like a little bit more narrative-y. Like, it was an important step on the road to what the game would eventually become. But since I don't have it, I don't want to talk about it too much. This one is a little bit closer to the 4th edition I played in high school because I ended up back in Texas and all my high school friends were around. So I was like, I'll make an edition that's kind of like that so that we can play together. And... So this is kind of like an updated, simplified, like, I guess I was just back in college. I was like in my early 20s at this point. And I just made a little quick condensation of the whole the whole Gorefest thing, so that I'd have like a decent, updated, everything spelled right version to work off of into the future. So you see we got the same critical hit table, slightly expanded from the 4th edition. That's back. Combat move table, which is another thing that I fucking stole from Rollmaster 2nd edition with the moving maneuver table. And once again, these things would eventually be adapted into the game's like resolution mechanic as a whole. Here we've still got the level titles. And see, when you reach level 9 there, you are officially a bad motherfucker. I'm really glad that I didn't like stick with that. I mean, you know, whatever. But it's a little cheesy. And you know, we still got equipment tables, all standard stuff, just a little bit condensed. And like, this is something that I want to say just about work in general. Is like, sometimes you get off into the weeds with it, and then you have to kind of like cut, like you have to cut shit down a lot more than you have to build shit out. Like, you can build shit out until like a project will become extremely elaborate, and then basically your job at that point is to just start mercilessly hacking away at it until only the most survivable parts exist. And that could be very, you know, it's hard to get to that point. New version has Twink as a quirk. You roll D6 for tummy smoothing. Level 20 Hard Lord Jelkista, says Civ Record. Yeah. Level 25 Possum Wrangler, says Kobold Comics. Yeah, we're the top POS posters on the internet here at daggermag.com/forum. Kobold, he's number one. He's the top POS poster. He's the best POS poster there is. All right, so once I wrote that, like, kind of slimmed down, simplified, modern update of the whole concept, towards the end of college, when I was working on my thesis, I needed something to take my mind off it and to kind of relax a little bit. And so I started working on Gorefest again. And at the time, the old school renaissance was going on online. So people that were kind of returning to original. Have you thought about turning it into a computer game? Says Lit Sigil. If you want to play Gorefest on the computer, you can actually go on daggermag.com/forum and create a character, and we're going to start running a game on the forum right now. The first post is up in the gaming subforum. I don't know if Gorefest you could really adapt it into being a video game, because unlike D&D, Gorefest is a pretty narrative system. So really, the actions you can take are unlimited. Like, you can describe your character doing anything you want to describe him doing. And not only do you get to describe what you want to do. In D&D, you say stuff like, I swing my sword. You don't say whether you hit or not. In Gorefest, you describe a complete action. I swing my sword, and I snap all the tendons in his arm so that it hangs limp at his side. And then you roll dice to determine how much of that action you actually pull off. It might be 10%, 20%, 30%. But you describe whole actions. And the idea is to be creative in describing them. So I actually think it's specifically something that works around a table that doesn't work in a computer game. I imagine it's a combination of Doom, Fallout style gameplay. Yeah, I mean, that would be cool. But for now, we got the RPG here, but roguelike with multiplayer. I mean, if you guys, anybody knows somebody who can make maybe we'll make a Gorefest mud. I'm open to it, but like I said, I think it would work best as a tabletop experience, or just play it with your friends. So when I was in college, when I was working on my thesis, I needed something to take my mind off of it, and this is when the old school renaissance was happening online, like I said. So this was a back to basics movement about old school role-playing game design, minimalist 1970s, 1980s, like gonzo kind of role-playing game design. And this is always the kind of games that I've had the most fun playing. Rollmaster is a 1980s game. I really like the Holmes Blue Book D&D. That's my favorite version of D&D. And I was starting to get turned on to stuff like Tekimel and the Empire of the Petal Throne and Chivalry and Sorcery and Call of Cthulhu. I started playing during this period. So I wanted to make something that was like an OSR kind of take on Gorefest. Like I wanted to just really mercilessly slash the whole thing down. And this is when I ended up with this version of the rules. That is, it is exact. Like it's pretty close to the version that we have for sale today. Like this is there's actually like stuff that is directly ported over in terms of mechanics from this version to the version that you can buy with the beautiful Matt James artwork. So let's look at some of these quirks, because we do have a full 100 entry quirk table spread over 2 pages. And I wrote this when I was in Austin, but I started playing it once I moved to New York and I found a gaming group, and they loved this quirk table. They had a lot of fun with it. Let's see, constantly texting, paranoid about the government, radical leftist, micro penis for men and women, loves jazz, horror movie fan, piece of shit racist, former prostitute, recovering drug addict, member of cult, loves to surf, castrated, on CIA death list, big game hunter, always betrays friends, romantic outlook, compulsive eater, fat as shit, heart condition, piercing headaches, dissociative episodes, dresses well, lost love, engaged to be married, has secret life, has visions of God, sexual sadist, plays in a band, nasty scar, missing teeth, going bald, putrid breath, has been homeless, cannibal, transvestite, former syndicate goon. You get the idea. But this was a very strong quirk table, and we played a lot of Gorefest in New York there for a couple of years, my group up here, and we didn't see that much repetition. Like this quirk table was not fucked with too much, but it served well for many, many years. Actually, only about 2 or 3. But this is where you start to see. This is the first instance of the resolution table, as you'll see it in Gorefest today. This is actually, like, with a couple of additional features, this is exactly the rules as they function in the finished version. And you see that the montaging thing is still there, the montaging rule where you can go around and get bonus dice for, like, basically creating a cinematic montage around the table. You've got this is fun. So to wake up to level up in this version of Gorefest, you had to go out and get drunk, and you would have to roll on the hangover table, which would tell you what condition you wake up in. So wake up with sex change operation, muscle reduction therapy. Oh shit, you now have a dragon tattoo, lose 1 hit point permanently. Wake up with knife wounds covering your hand. Someone was playing 5-finger fillet again. You check your wallet. You've lost another 1d6 times $1,000. Wake up to a guard releasing you from a mental institution. Add 1d4 quirks. PCP is a hell of a drug. Add 1 quirk. Wake up next to 200 pounds of curdled fuck. You have crabs. I started working on the game with a friend of mine who was in the Marines, and he loved Gorefest, but he was like, it's not hardcore enough. And so he helped me inject more hardcore into the system, which is weird because it's like this is the point where it became like the most like gay-ass metatextual, like, it's my idea about 70s role-playing game design, man. But then it also got like crude and brutal. I really like this version of the game. You don't have level titles in here anymore. It tells you you are as badass as different action movie stars. So level 1, you are as badass as Chuck Norris. That's where you start. Level 2, Seagal, all cap, bolded. Liam Neeson in Taken. Number 3, Tony Jaa, Statham, Jackie Chan, Jean-Claude Van Damme. Number 10th level, you're as tough as Sylvester Stallone. And then number 11, when you get to level 11, you're as tough as your own character's name. Like, you actually graduated off of the level thing at that point. And then there's actually, this one has weird level up paths that you follow, where it's supposed to be like the narrative arc of your character, the path of steel, the path of vengeance. And these would end up being adapted into the classes that you can see in the game today. I should note that none of the Gorefest systems were class-based systems. Like in D&D, you'd be fighter, wizard, rogue. But they've all been skill-based, where you don't have a class title. Since the original written down edition way back in 7th grade. And I ended up going back to it. But at this point, it's still skill-based, and this is sort of where the classes crept in to the back door. This is where you could start being a wild card. All kinds of interesting shit there. And then this is notes for what would eventually become the finished version of Gorefest that I worked on with my Marine friend. And so here you see the classes starting to take, modern kind of shape. You can get a veteran, martial artist. Like some of these rules, at least some of the ideas of these rules would persist. You got wanted. That was like the criminal class. And there used to be a D100 table to determine your criminal speciality, which is pretty useless, but it was kind of interesting. And let's see. Yeah, you could. This is where you could be like an operative, like a guy based on a fucking special forces dude, lawman, wild card. Because I saw that episode of Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and I want a name for the crazy guy character. Nowadays, these are called experts, but wild card is kind of a better. Wild card is a more evocative name, but this is the most recent document that I have for Gorefest, and if you want to see the finished version, you can of course go to daggermag.com and check it out. And I appreciate you guys coming with me on this trip down memory lane. And it's I guess the message, obviously making a role-playing game that resembles 1980s action movies and lets people play out funny and violent fantasies together is not it's not Paradise Lost. But with any kind of creative work that you're doing, you got to recognize that it's a process of accumulating and pulling away. This is why editors are so important to writers, because nothing gets pulled out of Zeus's head perfect. Sometimes you get, you just have that flash moment of inspiration and you pull out a great draft. But more often than not, you have a flash moment of inspiration and you create something that's going to be the sliver of whatever the final version of itself is. You're going to create that. This way back in 7th grade, I made this fucking piece of shit, and thank God I kept it. And I recognized that I had something that I wanted to keep developing, and none of these words actually survive. Almost none of these systems, in terms of the mechanics here, actually survive into the finished version. But it's you have that flash of inspiration, and you have to recognize when it's worth pursuing and when it is, or when you just enjoy pursuing it. You have to be willing to let it expand and let it contract, and also know when you're approaching done with it. So that's kind of that's why I think it would be interesting to show off the different versions of the game. And we're gonna, that's a Don Jolly original character, Solid Jake, on the folder. Originally it was Mike Krahulik's drawing of the two penny arcade guys holding guns to each other's heads, but my mom made me change it because she thought it made it look like I was thinking about suicide, which, to be fair, I was. So, yeah. My first character was a BuzzFeed writer who lost his job and got addicted to heroin, says Cold. Yeah, I remember that character. Really sad story. I'm just going to hang out and talk to everybody for a little while longer, and that'll be how we do the stream here. Little did you know that you were building skills in fields that matter years later for the new gen hipster nerds. Yeah, no, I had no idea that Gorefest was going to be something that would prepare me professionally for anything. I just did it because I have a lot of anxiety, and it makes me feel better to sit and focus on it makes me feel better to sit and focus on the physics of an alternate world. I like to design game systems. I like it a lot. and it helps reduce my level of anxiety. So, I like to stack shapes. I sit and I stack shapes and it ends up turning into something, thankfully. Boomer class update. We're going to have to nerf the boomer class. We're going to have to do that. Cyber Cynical, what's up, man? Westy, you didn't want to be like us. We got beat up, wore Sailor Moon dresses with Halloween, and modded 4th generation consoles as side jobs. Marines go hard at life. That list is actually fully correct. Dragon Tattoo should actually add extra hit points. Dragon Tattoo. I bought 3 copies of the 3DS because I printed out and thought the hard copy was out. Oh yeah, sorry, Eva Pilot. I'm gonna get back to you about those things. I've just been fucking running like crazy the last couple of days. Let's see. Wish I had hopped on tabletop bandwagon as a kid, says Westy. Never had friends interested in that. I find myself fascinated years later by RPGs like Warhammer and Cyberpunk 2020. I'd be down to play this. Yeah, if you want to play, man, go on daggermag.com/forum. Get an account. You can make a character, and we're starting to play a brand new Gorefest adventure called OJ Was Framed. Right there on the forums. And when we start a fight, we're going to do it as a live stream. But basically the way it works, like, you guys don't have to be on camera, because I don't have the technical setup to get everybody mic'd and to make it like worthwhile. So everybody's going to be playing by text, but I'm going to be GMing it in person with my face and my voice. And it's going to be an interesting one. We got a little intro video right there in the thread. So go to daggermag.com/forum and give it a check out. H3H3/John Wick charity DLC win. Han Wick. Yeah, no, we're gonna be tying in with John Wick 3 directly. You'll notice that Keanu Reeves had not had his like little career revival moment, so he's not mentioned anywhere in any of these old Gorefest things. So there's one last thing that I can show you. This does not lead anywhere, but this is like, this is really cool. And I don't know how much it's going to come out, but this is a role-playing game that I made when I was in 5th grade with my buddy Nathan Rhodes. You'll notice that the very first thing we did was subdivide the body up into hit locations so that you can deal extra damage for hitting people in the throat or heart. And we had all kinds of fucking great shit in here. It was called Battleground Medieval. I did the art myself. We got dwarves, elves, all kinds of fantasy and magic. Look at that. You can't get that from another role-playing game. It's a axe head on a chain. It's called a max. It's the perfect combination of mace and axe, with all of their powers and none of their flaws. He'd be below Stallone. Yeah, we got some spells here. Let me show off some of the cool monsters and terrible misspellings. Yeah, we've got look at that. We got the Gaint. The Gaint. I think it's supposed to be giant. Earth elemental, wind elemental. This is the other thing. Is like, it's 70 pages long, and a lot of it is just shit like this, just fucking maps. So even though it was, technically a role-playing game, we kind of played it like Zelda. Like, whenever we ran it, you would just use the maps that were in the book. So you could just run around this big, mapped out sort of environment and fight monsters and shit. We had a lot of fun with that. And Nathan Rhodes and I, played a lot of Gorefest back in the day too. He was one of the guys who really helped drive the game, forward. How did the Knights not think of this? I guess I don't get it. Like, it's the I'll be a giant midget. Gate midget. Yeah, Westy, you could be a gate midget, whatever you want. Johnny Bin Laden. Oh, giant dwarf. Yeah, like in the Old Man Murray review of Blaze and Blade. That's a good one. Let's see, what else do we got here? Here's a Don Jolly original. The cloth. I actually really like the way my fucking shitty childhood art looks in this. It's horrible and it's sketchy, and but I like it. It reminds me of a simpler time. Let's see, what else we got? Yeah, that's pretty much it. But yeah, so I found all these a stack of these old role playing games, and that's the other thing I would tell you. You know, if you do any kind of creative work, fucking save it, man, because save it. Know what to save. Throw away some shit for sure, because at a certain point you just get overloaded with it. But like stuff like this, like save it. Because it'll always make you feel good to go back through it and remember all the different things that you put together over the years. You gotta cut the 10-year-old you some slack, older vanities. Do drugs boost stats like in CDDA? They did in some versions of Gorefest. How did they not think of the Max? Yeah, the Max actually appears in a comic book that I did that's sort of a thematic follow-up to Subhumanoid, except way stupider. I don't think I have the files for it anymore, but I do have the artwork fucking somewhere, so we'll see about that. Oh, you know what? I know where it is. I'm going to show off the Max. Alright. Original artwork from summer of 2009. This is the original art for my comic Subhumanoid that appears in Dagger Mag #1. There's some of that. But I'm very happy with how the art for Subhumanoid turned out. There we go. Well, now let's not do that. But this is Farlax the Last Elf. Farlax the Last Elf is a fantasy comic about having anger problems. So here we go. I took the Max and I put it in there. Behold the Max, all the powers of mace and axe with none of their flaws. This guy has flail boots with the flails on them. There's a guy getting chopped up with the Max. The thing is, it's like I did all these comics and stuff. Like I did this big book called the Flapjack Canyon in like 2008. And everything was in continuity with that, and so it's like the whole thing had this fucking obtuse, like magical realism continuity that made no sense to anybody but me. And so it's like this is halfway like a Will Ferrell movie, kind of like jokey fantasy parody thing, but then it's also like tied up with the weird history of that whole Flapjack Canyon universe. Here's a dark wizard of some variety. Here's Farlax fording a river, chopping a guy's head off. And then it ends with the wizard doing some kind of spell to bring Earth's second moon crashing into the planet. Because there was an epoch where there were two moons in the sky, and they pulled one down. I did a giant ink drawing, like an ink drawing that was about 4 feet across of the moon slamming into the planet, which I think is still. I think it's Max McDermott's father still has it framed up somewhere. So it's like a parody of something pretty esoteric, says Older Thanates. The Max is being developed by Raytheon Defense Systems. Yeah, once the Max has already been developed by Raytheon. They put a laser sight on there. Holy shit. Next generation battlefield. I'm going to heist that painting, says Kobold Comics. I'll see if I can get a picture of it. It's not a painting. It's an ink drawing that's 4 feet across. It's like a gigantic comic book panel. And yeah, it was, I liked it. I liked it a lot. I wish I had a picture of it to show off, but I don't. So, anybody else got anything they want to ask? Anything you fucking chat wants to talk about? We can talk about that. Yeah, well, we've been going for about, oh, fuck. I don't want to talk about Iran. I'm sorry. I want to talk about anything but Iran. I'm in the middle of writing this HRC 2020 like political column. So, can I bug you about getting added to the forum, Older Thanates? Yeah. Did you send a 250 word post? I mean, you don't have to. If you're fucking on the chat here, I'll add you. Weather sucks in Fall River here. Are you out in Fall River, Westy? But yeah. So Older Thanates. Let me see. If you sent a 250 word essay, then I should just I add everybody who writes 250 words. Like I'm really not judging you for content. It's just about writing 250 words that are formed into sentences that are reasonably, cogent. Not necessarily correct, but cogent. But yeah. Oh, cool. Yeah. So send that to editor@daggermag.com and be sure to put the username that you signed up with, and I will approve you. Me not in Fall River, me in Jamaica. No, man, says Kobold Comics. I signed up as zombie. Yeah, I think I see you there. Should I do mushrooms for an ego reset? In my experience, mushrooms tend to be less of an ego reset and more of a body high than LSD. But, a lot of people have great experiences on mushrooms, so I don't want to tell you not to do it. Except, of course, HRC 2020, we are completely drug-free, and I would never encourage anybody to take psychoactive substances of any kind because it's her turn, and the only thing that I need to get high on, honestly, is how excited I am to finally get a chance to vote for Hillary Clinton in 2020. Yeah. HRC 2030. HRC is a cutie, says Goobers. Very true. Absolutely true. Never did drugs. Should I do pot, says Westy. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, HRC 2020, got to keep it drug-free in 2023, my man. You got to be completely straight edge. You got to not even eat food. You got to just be tap water. You get everything you need from tap water, okay? You get all your fiber, get all your estrogen, you get your iron, you get your tracking devices, microscopic tracking devices, you get essential oils. You get everything you need from tap water. Everything. HRC 2020 is bringing back punk. Very true. HRC 2020 is bringing back all your favorite musical subgenres. She's going to make vaporwave good again. She's got an incredible platform this time around, and you're not going to believe who we're going to war with next. Because it doesn't fucking matter who the president is. We have to fight a war everywhere against everyone to maintain the economic integrity of our massive, failing nightmare empire. And people wonder why I want to sit around and fucking play role-playing games. She did on the gay marriage pretty much out of nowhere. Civwrecker, essential oils, essential greases, pre-used white vinegar, whatever you need. Civwrecker, you got it right. You know what's going on. Who am I going to vote to kill millions? Any of them. Any of them. Apparently, it doesn't matter who the fuck you elect. They're going to kill millions of people. Or at least tens of thousands of people. I mean, I don't know. Like, I'm going to write something about this, but it's just very depressing, stream subject matter. I want to kind of keep things light. I don't want to do a stream that's just me screaming for an hour and a half into my like crappy built-in ThinkPad microphone. Just scream and scream and scream. It's like that issue of Flaming Carrot where he's sitting at the bar and he says, someday I'm going to start spinning and never stop until there's blood all over the walls. And that's just how you feel. At least 85% of the time. Draft our daughters. Vegan diet or raw meat only diet? Tap water only diet. Take it on, Brian. Take the ultimate challenge. Nothing but tap water. Bad touch Biden 2020? No. Nobody's going to vote for Joe Biden. Not when they can vote for her. HRC 2020? You put her next to Joe Biden? Who's going to pick Joe? Okay? He's a fucking man. You know whose turn it's been for a long time? Guys like him. Alright? Sick of it. It's her turn. I want a new face to wear the boot that is fucking grinding my face into the pavement. I really need new kinds of people to wear the oppression boot. That's what progress looks like to me. That's how I've chosen to survive and believe that the arc of moral progress is real. Because I want to be fucked and bullied and abused by different kinds of people. I would like it to be an equal opportunity position to fuck with me and ruin my shit. That's what I would like. That's justice. That's fucking progress to me. HRC 2020. Oh God, HRC 2020. This is so inspiring. Beta HRC game of skate. Tap in or tap out. I bet skateboards are way sicker than Beto. HRC skateboards way sicker than Beto. Yeah, she does. I've seen her at Yellow Ledge in Austin, Texas, late night, passing the doobies back and forth. HRC, just skating, man. Not even talking. Okay? That's how much respect the skaters in Austin had for HRC. You know, she would show up. Huge celebrity. One of the biggest in the world. Used to be first lady of the whole country. Does she treat the shredders any different than she would treat anybody else? No. Do they treat her different than any other shredder? No. I saw her sucking face with a 15-year-old boy behind Slick Willie's pool hall. And that's, you could say, you know, sometimes like the Republicans, or the Republicans, as I call them, because they can't fucking keep messing up our country like this. They like to talk about Joe Biden doing inappropriate things with young girls. And they would probably make a big deal over the fact that I saw Hillary Clinton making out with a 15-year-old behind Slick Willie's pool hall. But I'll tell you what, it wasn't because she was a pedophile or an ephebophile or she wanted young Strange in any way. It's because she respected him and he respected her. That's what you don't get it. But when you see Joe Biden massaging a 12-year-old's shoulders with his hands like this, which is not threatening at all, when you see that, it happens in an environment of mutual respect. That's what makes it okay. Trump does it, it's not mutual, all right? That's how that works. Welcome to 2019. So glad it's her turn. If she comes out with Huma, she's a shoo-in. Republitard out. I'm thinking it's Buttigieg now. Yeah, Buttigieg he wrote a great thesis at Harvard. I saw HRC doing slappies outside of Circle K last night, drinking a Colt 4540. Yeah. Will Podesta run her campaign again? No, Podesta is too famous as an internet pedophile to do anything other than like be a media consultant. HRC burgers are made of 100% justifiable hate. Doing kickflips. I see pride flags everywhere now. We are being conquered, says Brian. I don't think so. I think it's just corporate America thinks that they can like soften their image and sell to a new demographic if they turn themselves rainbow for a month. And there's really not anything offensive about turning yourself rainbow. It's actually, you know, it kind of makes things look interesting. It's like when everything turns red and green at Christmas, except now everything is prismatic. So it makes sense from an advertising perspective, and it gives them a sense of moral superiority. And there ain't nothing wrong, you know, if you want to look at some top tier twink tummies, knock yourself out, man. The internet's there for a reason. Corporations care, says Westy. Exactly. The corporations really care. And more importantly, whether they care or not, how they feel, if they can be said to feel at all, is much more significant than how we feel. Because our civilization does no longer exist for the sustenance of its individual members, but instead for the business conglomerates that have come to dominate its destiny. Why does corporate America not take Black History Month this seriously? Because the iconography, the iconography is less fun from an advertising perspective, and it's also still more inflammatory. It's still more inflammatory for people. It's like too tied up in like America's history of violence and repression. I mean, not that the LGBT movement, isn't, but the LGBT movement has like more fun optics than Black History Month. Like if you want to talk about doing like the Black Lives Matter like 13-point curriculum in schools or whatever, it's like there's a lot of focus on the institutional injustice part of this particular history, and perhaps rightly so, I suppose. But it makes it less fertile ground for advertisers, because you don't want your product to be associated in any way with lynchings, which you just, if you're Charmin or you're you don't want to be associated with that, whether you're saying they're bad or not. Like LGBT Pride Month, you can the message is essentially the same message that every advertisement sends. It's like, be you, be proud of being you, except they just give it a slight political spin. Black History Month is more complicated, and thank God they haven't figured out a way to use Martin Luther King to sell Apple computers or something. That would be terrible. That would be the worst. Pepsi made that mistake already with that Kendall Jenner ad. Yeah, I remember that. Thing was crazy. Check out 365black.com. Keep it golden, says Sirhat. Charmin Bears saved Django from a lynching, says Hayden. Yeah, rainbow is much better than, like, what would you put, a noose or a flag or something, or a cross through news. Yeah, it's the thank God they haven't figured out how to advertise with absolutely everything. I mean, I don't want to talk about the fucking perfidiousness of advertisers, because I'm looking for a job right now, so I might end up doing some fucking crazy shit. But you gotta pay the bills. Conglomerates feel in the same manner as an eldritch life form, says Johnny Bin Laden. I very much agree with that. I actually think that it is accurate to discuss the 21st century as being a time when human beings are no longer the dominant life form on the planet, and are instead creating collective intelligences, such as the collective intelligence that is represented by an international corporation or an internet forum like daggermag.com/forum. You can't market, Martin Luther Mazda 3. Yeah. All right. So we've been talking for about an hour, 8 minutes. I think this was a pretty fun little stream. And I want to keep it a little bit tight because I wanted to just show off the older versions of Gorefest. But thank you, everybody, for showing up. Go to daggermag.com/forum. Send a 250-word post on any topic to editor@daggermag.com. And if you're curious about Gorefest, we're going to be playing it on the forum starting today. And you can check it out at daggermag.com. The new issue is very large, but it is coming. I'm working on it. I've been putting some previews up on the forum for anybody who's interested. Thank you, my dude. Will do. Good luck, Don. Cyber Cynical. See you, man. Yeah, all right. Later on, everybody. It's been fun.